Josh Trank's Capone is a surrealistic film approach to the last year of Al Capone's life that's centered by a stellar Tom Hardy performance. I'm Joe Acierno, this is Real Talk. Welcome to Real Talk. Thank you so much for tuning into this Capone 2020 film review. If you haven't gotten a chance to yet, don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notifications. And if you're really feeling generous, follow all the social media pages that I have set up for the show that are outlined in the description below. Now, let's get right into it. Capone follows the final year in the life of a declining Al Capone as he battles both dementia and the demons of his past. The film was directed and written by Josh Trank and stars Tom Hardy, Linda Cardellini, Al Sapienza, Noel and Matt Dillon. When the trailer for this film was first released, it's safe to say that my expectations for Capone were very low. That being said, upon finishing the film, even though I can't say it's quite worth the $9.99 rental price that you need to pay in order to watch this film since it's on video on demand, I look at it in comparison to the $5.99 that I paid to watch Arkansas. And going back to all that, I kind of wish that I only paid about $5.99 to watch Capone and nothing to watch Arkansas. So even though my bar was set incredibly low for Capone, the film does manage to exceed my expectations. And the reason for that is because at its core is a chilling character study of a decrepit Al Capone. Al Capone is mounted in this film as both very sickly, but at the same time still very dangerous. He's plagued by both dementia and neurosyphilis, so he's in no control of his mental and physical faculties whatsoever. Now, of course, we all know Al Capone as being this criminal force to be reckoned with back in his heyday. But at that point in time, he was very much in control of the nastier side of his character. Whereas now, this film shows that he's not. But at the same time, what makes this film more interesting than I originally thought it was going to be is that this film shows him as still this very much uncontrolled, but at the same time, this person is still very much capable of doing terrible things. And this idea that he's this dynamite that's just waiting to be lit gives the film a very tense and almost unstable overarching feeling throughout. Now, it might not come as much of a surprise to a lot of people, but Tom Hardy is fantastic in this film. He completely embodies Al Capone. He disappears into the role. This chameleon reputation that Tom Hardy's developed for himself throughout the course of his career is no stranger to any of the work that he does in this film. He's one of my favorite actors working today, and he's one of the few actors where if I find out that he's associated with a film, I will look more into that film because he's acting in it. Now, if there's one complaint that I do have about his performance, and I'm not even sure that it's because of his performance or because of the work of the sound team, because there are a lot of times where it is kind of hard to understand exactly what Al Capone is saying, but it makes sense for them to portray him this way because he's this very sick man, so of course, they're going to give him a very weak voice considering all the conditions that Capone has plaguing him at this point in his life. But this isn't just a Tom Hardy movie review. In terms of the artistic design for this film, not only are the sets and costumes wonderful, the makeup that they use for Al Capone is terrifying. They don't make him just look like a sick man. They make him look like a sick monster that's straight out of a horror movie. Now, one of the ways that this movie exceeded my expectations was because of the fact that I originally thought that this was going to be a very run-of-the-mill, generic approach to telling the story of this iconic historical figure. But this movie ends up taking a very surrealistic approach to the final days of Al Capone. Now, of course, because of the surrealistic approach, I can see the film being very polarizing because that way of doing things definitely isn't for all audience members. And I thought that this is a very intriguing way to go about doing things. I definitely appreciated the effort, even if there are times where the film ends up being just a bit confusing and self-indulgent. I'll give you an example. The film, of course, portrays Al Capone's dementia, and with this dementia comes all of the mental delusions of grandeur. Now, these sequences of delusion definitely kept my interest for their entire duration. I thought those were well done, but the problem was that I felt like they went on for just a bit too long, for something that never actually happens in the reality of the story. So let me just compare that to how I felt with the ending of the Twilight Saga. Again, they envisioned this huge battle going on, but then it never ends up actually happening in the reality of the movie. And it kind of left somewhat of a sour taste in my mouth because I'm like, okay, you just took us on this grand journey, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, the consequences that this sequence has for the overall motion of the story isn't really much. In terms of everything else surrounding Al Capone, like I said, that's the artistic design is terrific, but in terms of the other characters and performances, I'm not gonna lie, not too much to write home about, and the performances were kind of meh, but I think they were kind of meh because they weren't given too much to work with. Probably the other biggest performance in this film comes from Linda Cardellini, and again, Linda Cardellini's turn isn't necessarily bad. It's fine, but again, like I said, I still very much saw Linda Cardellini. The acting was competent, but not necessarily immersive, if that makes sense. But again, her character wasn't really much for her to sink her teeth into, so I don't think that's necessarily her fault. In terms of the motion of the story, there's not too much of a plot. Things kind of just happen throughout the duration of this film, and all the events in this film are held together by a very loose script. And while I do feel like that was kind of intentional, it didn't necessarily work for me, but I could see it working for someone else. So, all in all, anchored by its captivating portrayal of its titular subject, Capone is an unexpectedly surrealistic, albeit one-trick pony interpretation of the final days of Public Enemy No. 1, and a step in the right direction for Josh Trank. I'm going to give Capone an 80. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking around until the end, and let me know exactly what you thought of Capone in the comments section. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notifications, as well as follow all the social media pages that I have set up for the show outlined in the description section. And until next time, I'm Joe Acierno. This has been Real Talk.